Escorts, have you ever become emotionally attached to one of your clients? What became of it? I met my wife at a strip club that she was stripping at. I came in with some of my friends and I saw this beautiful blonde that was making her rounds on the stages around the club. I still think this is crazy, but in my head I was like, wow, she is so confident and pretty. I have to get a dance from her. I patiently waited for her to finish her stage set. I approached her and asked if she would like to do a private dance. She never danced for me once. She just sat on my lap and we talked for hours in the back of the club about our lives and what we like to do. We had this connection that I never felt with any other woman I'd met in my life. When the lights turned on and it was time for everyone to leave, I pulled out my wallet to pay her and she declined. She gave me her number and we met up for a date the next weekend. We've been married for 5 years now. I never thought or expected to meet my wife at a strip club. She quit stripping a few months into our relationship and went back to school. Now we both have great jobs and a stable life. We have both changed each other's lives in positive ways and I love her with all of my heart. This is a super touching one to start off with, and I'm glad because I'm worried that some might not be so touching. Speaking of touching though, if you're ever at a strip club, remember, no touching, everybody. Unless, I guess like OP, you touch her heart. Aww. But seriously, no touching. Story 2. Former escort here. I fell in love with a client. He looked kind of rockabilly and had heaps of tattoos. He'd bring me coffee and we would talk about books and music. He made me a playlist of his favorite songs and brought me a copy of his favorite book. We swapped real names and talked honestly about life and relationships. One night we met up in a bar and he hung out with my friends. Stayed out all night and he crashed at mine. We were together for about 2 years. I quit escort work and went back to university, got a normal job, and we moved in together. My family adored him and I got along really well with his mother. We broke up for pretty normal reasons. I wanted a responsible partner who I could build a life with, save money, be fit and healthy. He wanted to tour with the band, drink and party. Last time I saw him, he was in and out of rehab and in some volatile relationship. I saw his mother last year and his business had failed. He hadn't been sticking with rehab and he was being charged with assaulting his ex-girlfriend. I really hope he manages to deal with his problems and get clean. I'm still thankful for the time we had and don't hold any grudges. OP, I think there's a good reason why his mother liked you. You were probably the best influence that man has ever had in his life. It's a shame he went the path he did, but what can you do? It's the life he chose. Story 3. I'm a male gay for pay escort. I've never fallen for any of my male clients, never had a female one before. That is a unicorn. Although I never fell for any clients, I did have deep respect for some of them. I would genuinely enjoy seeing and catching up. When I got close enough to some of these clients, we would just hang out, watch TV, and have deep conversations, maybe with their head in my lap. Easy 300 to 400 bucks, tax-free. One thing I realized is that men crave physical affection. I'm not talking about banging, but holding, hugging, etc. Some would tell me no one has ever held them before in their 30 to 60 years of life. When I started holding/hugging clients after any intimate activity, it boosted recurring clients by 50%. Most of my clients now don't even bang because of this. It feels amazing to be paid to connect with people on an intimate level. Story 4. I dabbled on the cam sites one day and met a woman who worked there. We talked for a while and became friends. She invited me to take a vacation and stay at her place. She was married, but we hooked up anyway. After a few days, I extended my vacation and we started doing couples shows together. One of our regulars was a 50-year-old woman with a plastic surgery addiction. She was pretty attractive for her age. After a few weeks of tipping, I shot her my number in a private message and we started texting. Eventually, my co-performer and I called it quits and I ended up connecting with Cougar Client. For a while, we had a sugar relationship. It was weird because her daughter was my age and she was totally fine with bringing her around me. But the Cougar Client gave me more money than I ever had and took me to places I could never afford. As time went on, I'd spend the night at her house and start doing little things like cooking for her and her daughter and helping out with chores. One day I was there while Cougar Client was working from home. Her daughter was also there and going through crap with her father. At one point, she starts telling me about it, and out of my mouth came these words of encouragement and a fatherly hug. I was creeped the hell out, and I realized I was in my early 20s. I came to the realization that, oh no, this wasn't just a sugar relationship anymore. I actually cared about these two in some sort of familial way. I was creeped the hell out that I was playing stepfather to a young woman I would swipe right on. If Tinder was a thing back then at least. Bonus story. For a while, I hung out at a bar where escorts hung out. I ended up becoming a regular client of one woman. Her and I ended up seeing each other every day and just spending tons of time together. After a couple of weeks, we started seriously dating, and then a full-blown relationship. After a couple weeks, we started seriously dating, and then a full-blown relationship. She continued working but cut her schedule down a lot. We eventually got engaged and had one of the most epic engagement parties ever. She got pregnant and we were expecting to have a child. It turned out that it wasn't mine, but one of her clients, which I would have been cool with since that happens. But instead of talking to me about it, she flipped on me and ran away. She reached back out to me just before having the kid and we stayed friends for a while. The only thing she asked me to do was sign the birth certificate and not tell her daughter or family about her past. I did. She never expected me to pay child support or help raise her daughter, which was fine by me. But if anything happens to my ex-fiancé, I might be responsible for a teenage girl. OP has had an eventful life from what I can tell. This person accidentally became a father twice, kind of? One of them stepfather and the other, I guess, also stepfather if it's not his. Legally it was, though. Risky move to sign a birth certificate for a child that isn't yours, though. Even if they say, oh no, I won't make you pay child support or whatever, they still could if you're legally, bound to the child. If this ever happens to anyone out there, just be careful. Story 5. I used to do escort work, and I'm still friends with some of those who I met. So much so, I used the guest room of one of the couples while traveling. One guy about 5 years ago even paid for all my scuba training and equipment. Lovely man, but he moved for a new work position. I had a day job, but it was contract work, and they never wanted to hire to avoid paying benefits. I am now a cam model and prefer this way more. I have a regular on there who is apologizing profusely for not being able to tip as their dog got injured and has vet bills. I told him no need to apologize and have checked in with him every couple of days to hear the dog's progress. Because animals are important to me, our pets are our families. I do morning coffee on cam too. I do love my life. On some level, I think you have to care about the people you see often. Because without these people, I wouldn't be where I am today. I had a crap childhood and luckily I got out. In the beginning, I did it out of survival. But now that I'm a cam model and doing kink education work, I'm able to build an audience and following to educate and show off. I talk about safety and knowing risk and playing smart all the time. People can do whatever they want with their bodies if it doesn't harm another being, in my opinion. I just want people to have their fun and minimize risk as much as possible. I luckily wrapped up that kind of life with no lifelong illnesses. Now that I do cam, no risk to me or any future partners. Story 6. Friend of a former escort. She had severe emotional attachment issues, and that's what led her to intimate work in the first place. She got emotionally attached to many clients, none of whom even treated her well. She says that if I hadn't made her cut contact with them and stay with me while she got help, she probably would have married one of them and pumped out babies for an abusive husband. I'm not going to get into whether escort work is right or wrong. It's important to realize, though, that the way it is now, it draws in very vulnerable people with deep-seated issues. I'm not saying everyone is like that, but it does appeal to people who confuse physical intimacy for emotional intimacy. Story 7. Not an escort, but I once met this girl online. She had a beautiful voice and I felt instantly attracted to her. We met through a friend. I hosted my own TeamSpeak server at the time and he would frequently use it with whoever he was gaming with. She was very impressed with the fact that I ran the server for some reason and we started talking. After a few months of hanging out online, I finally got the courage to ask her out. Turned out that she lived about 7 hours away, so I drove out there and picked her up for a concert. I got there and instantly there were sparks. She was turned on by my car as well, and as a car guy, that was a big plus for me. We kept visiting each other and eventually she moved in with me. I became emotionally attached to her and we eventually got married. OP, look, great for you. You're not an escort. This question isn't directed to you at all. This isn't even like, oh, my friend was an escort. No, this has nothing to do with it. Instead, OP wanted to brag that they hosted a TeamSpeak server and that got them a wife, which is incredible, don't get me wrong. Wrong thread, buddy. Story 8. I used to be an H addict and ended up meeting an escort at a dealer's house. She was actually really cool and nice and pretty freaking hot. We started hanging out basically every day and getting high. She started doing stuff like laying her head on my shoulder, and then things got frisky. One day we went into this store we always went into together, and after she left and went back to my car, the cashier said, "I see you in here all the time. Your girlfriend is hot." I went back to the car and told her, and I think she thought I was saying we were dating, because after I dropped her off, she said, "I love you," and kissed me on the cheek. I started considering the idea but knew I couldn't date an active escort, and wasn't sure I could date an ex one either. One weekend we went on a mega binge and we started talking about getting clean and actually dating. I don't know how much of that was serious and what was the drugs talking though. That was also the weekend that I had my worst overdose and she called 911 and saved my life. Then I got sent to detox and got clean and she kept using, which means I obviously can't be around her, so I haven't seen her since. Not really answering your question, but I thought it was sort of a beautiful thing. Two completely messed up, out of control people who temporarily found peace with each other. We never argued or fought, and I never saw her be mean to anyone, actually. I still miss her sometimes. She was a really sweet girl, and I feel bad for her because she deserves a better life. Other people who knew her all said she was a good girl, too. I think she might be in prison now. It's frickin' sad, man. Story 9. Stripper here. I met my current partner at work. The night we met, I was informed by one of the waitresses I should chat with this guy who is fairly regular at the club. He'll give you money for just talking to him. I found him chatting and smoking a cigarette with another stripper that I'm good friends with, so I didn't feel awkward invading. We all talk and he slides some ones in my G-string. Admittedly, I didn't give him too much credit our first meeting, as my first impression was that he was way too full of himself. This proved to be true, but with good reason. We talked and he followed me to watch my stage set. I had his attention and he made it rain on your girl. The rest of the night we talked about music and style. He has a lot of it as a fashion major. He scored major points with me. At the end of the night, I gave him my number. Our first date. After much texting and flirting via social media, we agreed to meet for coffee. He's a lot more relaxed. He was so much more endearing when it was just the two of us. He gives me a quartz crystal which warms my witch heart. Our date goes way too long because we can't stop talking. He missed a meeting and I'm late for a doctor's appointment. Our date ends with a water fight, spitting water on each other in the parking lot, to the horror of the other coffee shop patrons. We eventually move in together. What you should know. While this is a happy story about me finding someone I'm confident I'm in it for the long haul with, I want you to know, most people are riddled with trauma and have a ton of healing to do. The escort population is a concentration of those humans. I am no exception. I've had some whack coping mechanisms that eventually became toxic traits. I'm happy to report that I'm on my path to healing, and my partner is the biggest factor in that. He's been strong enough for me to examine myself and facilitate my growth, because he's the first one to have those positive intentions for me. It comes from a place of unconditional love, and he's been on the receiving end of my crappy behavior that would end most relationships. He's gone through a lot of pain to see me through my own. My partner is 1 in a million. The fact I met him at work is still mind-blowing. He called me his breath of fresh air when we first met. He really was the one that brought new life to me, and I'm on my mission to give him all the joy he gives me. Before you ask, yes, I'm in therapy. Currently home from a bright-looking first session with a new therapist, who I'm actually looking forward to my next session with rather than being ambivalent about it. She's had a lot of experience with working with escorts and trauma. Her approach is direct, which is a great fit for me. Last thought if you read the whole thing. Be kind and support adult workers if you're in the position to do so. We deal with a lot of people's darkest tendencies, so some respect and kindness really goes a long way. Most of us don't have insurance, we pay out of pocket for our health care, so supporting us at our place of employment is literally caring for our health and well-being. Another absolutely wholesome one here. I just love stories about people growing, and not just growing, but like growing together, or growing facilitated by someone in their life. I don't know. The interconnection, the interpersonality of it all makes me very warm and fuzzy. Story 10. A woman I've been good friends with for years found her husband at a strip club she was working at. She said that she was instantly attracted to him, and even more so when she noticed that he looked like he would rather be at the dentist getting cavities filled than be there. He was forced because of his brother's bachelor party. They started talking, she brought him a few glasses of Diet Coke, they exchanged numbers, got engaged 1 year later, literally the day they met, and have been married and happy for 15 years next month. She always told herself that she would never fall in love again. Ex was an abusive nightmare, and then boom, love at first sight. According to them, I don't believe in that. She glows from happiness when he's near, and it's beautiful. Story 11. Not an adult worker, but I have had actual conversations with strippers while they were working. First one, I had a couple of dances and we got to chatting. Turns out we grew up like 2 roads over from each other, had some drinks and chatted for a while. Really nice girl. Second one, had a couple of dances, song ends and we just started talking. We had the same taste in books and some other mutual interests. Talked for about an hour and a half and then went on my merry way. Story 12. I'm reluctant to say that I was an escort, but that is certainly what I was doing. I found clients through Craigslist and spent a good couple of months driving around meeting Johns. I was doing so while I was in my first serious relationship. The guy I was dating was a complete leech, unable to keep even a simple minimum wage job, and expected me to pay for food, transportation, and anything else. I didn't really view it as cheating. I'm pretty dissociated from my body when I have manic episodes, so yeah, I barely registered what I was doing. Anyhow, I had a client fly me out to Vegas for a couple of days. While there, He treated me and actually reciprocated intimately, something my boyfriend never did. Oh, and he even once tried to bang me while I slept and tried to convince me the next morning that I had been dreaming. Pretty sure that counts as gaslighting. This guy, though, was sweet. Seemed like he would care for me and reciprocate gestures in the relationship and not just intimate. My ex knew at the time what I was doing. He found out after going through my phone and told me he was fine with it. Well, he went through my phone again, found out that I had developed feelings for this client. That's when he told my mom. She freaked out and had me committed. After that, I had no phone access and was completely cut off and never heard from the guy again. For the record, I don't condone cheating, but I certainly don't regret cheating on that leeching, gaslighting, pathetic piece of crap. No, trying to bang you while you sleep, that isn't gaslighting. Let me look here. It is, assault. Yeah, whether you're dating or not, it's still assault. So it's much, much worse than just gaslighting. And I'm sure that guy was not great in so many other ways, but that really does it for me. Just blatant disregard for the other person as a person. Gross. Story 13. Not an adult worker, but someone who met their girlfriend from an escort site. You'd be surprised. I was depressed, very depressed. I had purchased a phenobarbital from the net and started to close down my life. Emotionally, I was a wreck. I very rarely spoke to anyone. Meaningful conversation was just not something I'd done in a very long time. My only social interaction was going down to the shop every day. I had a set date to complete, a month to go, and I just wanted to feel some closeness. So I did something that I had never done before. I hired an escort for the night. Cost a lot of money, but I wanted her to stay for the night, not just the banging. I just wanted to feel someone next to me and to wake up with. I was so nervous when she came. I explained to her that I didn't want to bang, just someone to watch a couple of films with and eat some pizza. It was amazing. We cuddled and chatted, and I was blown away to learn that she knew who Mervyn Peake was. We never did bang. I wanted to see her again, so I booked her in advance for a week before my completion. I cooked her dinner, and we chatted. We even banged eventually. I fell in love, which, considering my situation, was hardly surprising. So when she invited me to take her out to dinner one night, I couldn't refuse. To cut a long story short, we started to date. Very soon afterwards, she finished escorting and I told her about the drug. I owe her my life, and every single day I am still here, it's down to her. I feel like a little disclaimer is necessary on this one. This will not work for everyone. Hiring an escort will not cure your depression. There are deep underlying causes that can be treated and helped, but an escort is not the way 99% of the time. I feel like OP got incredibly lucky, and I will say I'm glad that OP did. It's great to hear that OP no longer wants to unalive themselves. That's a great development in any case. That being said, I would not count on this as a surefire method to feel better. An unfortunate one to end on, but we're out of time for now, so I hope that you thought this thread was interesting at the very least, maybe learned some things, and maybe had your heartstrings plucked. Tugged? I don't know the word. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.